So, alright, if you watch my video on Operation Northwoods, the CIA plan to commit false flag attacks, faking a disaster to start a war with Cuba, and they were going to do so by flying commercial planes into civilian buildings or boats. Anyway, isn't that very, very similar to what happened on 9/11? Just saying. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff to cover with this tragedy, but we won't get to all of it. So yeah, I think it's best if we skip ahead and just talk about the new proof that came out recently. Proof that our government did this. To us. Anyway, this just came out. A court filing from Guantanamo Bay reveals possible CIA involvement in September 11th. So, the documents show a relationship between terrorists and the Saudi intelligence service formed by US CIA officers through a group called the quote-unquote Safari Club, which is a secret alliance of nations that the CIA uses to conduct unlawful operations. So get this, the CIA was trying to find ways to blame the FBI for the attacks. Yes, the CIA tried to hide that they were aware of the relationship between the hijackers and Al-Qaeda because they were, and I quote, running a false flag operation, end of quote. The documents go on to say, so the UBL station was allegedly tasked with building informants inside of Al-Qaeda, but it was ran in a way that would make that nearly impossible. Possibly because analysts secretly already had men on the ground and were not disclosing it as part of a hidden operation. Despite outcry from agents at the station and an awareness of the danger, a quote-unquote stop was not authorized to prevent the hijackers from entering the country. FBI command ordered agents to stand down in their investigation of the hijackers. So, officers within the CIA and the FBI leadership involved in the investigations repeatedly blocked FBI investigators from assessing critical information. So, the intel agencies also hid the fact that the hijackers had been allowed into the United States in the year 2000 on CIA orders because, and I quote, they were attempting to recruit them as intelligence services, end of quote. The attempt to recruit al-Hazmi and al-Midhar was an operation directed by the CIA. So the CIA used their relationship with the Saudi intelligence service to conduct an operation on U.S. soil. And I quote, FBI agents testifying before the joint inquiry into September 11th were instructed not to reveal the full extent of the Saudi government involvement with Al-Qaeda, end of quote. So this quote-unquote false flag operation was orchestrated by 3 entities, including the Saudis who provided the terrorists with a major cover story. This was done by Mossad, who provided the Israeli agents that got caught with a van full of explosives and an empty van full of explosive residue the day of.
And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives had anything to do with other events of the day is unclear, but the FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge. But they arrested the 2 suspects and they're questioning them as we speak. President Bush says the death toll at the World Trade Center and today's other targets is in the thousands.
As well as these agents were filming and laughing before the first plane hit, which is how they got caught, only to be handed back to Israel without question. Yes, apparently they had access to the buildings for a whole month prior by using a fake Mossad company, and they rigged the 2 towers in Building 7 to guarantee that they would fall. Building 7 was never hit by a plane. It was actually 2 buildings away from the tower, and it was actually housing a lot of paperwork on stuff like the Safari Club. And so the CIA suppressed evidence and controlled the media to cover up holes in their story, like the pristine terrorist passport that was found on the ground, perfectly fine. And so as a side benefit, I guess, this also means that they could hide the trillions of Pentagon money that they quote-unquote lost the day before the attacks on September 10th. However, as usual, that is not all. This also enabled the Patriot Act to move forward, which of course was a way to spy on American citizens. And on top of that, it also enabled the military-industrial complex to start a war in the Middle East for profit and power, with terrorists that the CIA actually trained by blaming bin Laden, who they also trained. Now on top of that, this also gave them the opportunity to try to destroy Iraq and install a central bank there, which was their ultimate goal. So yeah, this story is so crazy. They killed 3,000 US citizens, and however many troops we lost fighting over the years, just so the central banks and the war hawks in DC could profit. It's also a reason why they did not care about how they pulled out of Afghanistan. They were setting up another contrived war in Ukraine to keep these forever wars going. And in their eyes, if the war in Ukraine doesn't work out the way they hope, well then guess what? The Taliban, ISIS, well, they have $2 billion worth of weapons now. so another insurgency is likely. The forever wars continue. Okay, so we have a little bit more information about this court filing from Guantanamo Bay, and I quote, "Sometime during June of 2001, the CIA approached the FBI counterterrorism squad in New York City and asked for a meeting regarding al-Hazmi and al-Midhar. So the intel agency went to the FBI because they were asking the FBI for help. Yes, they claimed to the FBI that they lost track of the terrorists, and these two would eventually hijack the planes on September 11th. So in the documents, it's also exposed that these two terrorists obtained their visas to enter the United States at the American consulate in Saudi Arabia. The visas were issued to facilitate the operation run by the Saudis and the CIA. So yeah, the CIA gave them the visas. In the days immediately after the 9/11 attacks, CS-12 and other New York-based FBI agents participated in a conference call with FBI leadership. And it was actually during that conversation that they learned that Hazmi and Midhar, the terrorists, were named on Flight 77's manifest. One of the agents ran the names through a commercial database, quickly finding them and their home address listed in San Diego. It turned out they had been living with an FBI informant. Yeah,